Okay guys, I've got 37 weekly charts to be showing you, and we're going to be looking at stocks from the 1960s, 70s, 80s up until the present day. We're going to look at some of the biggest winners in the stock market. You're going to be familiar with many of these names: Apple's, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Xerox's of the world. We're going to be looking at the bases that they formed. I'm going to be giving you some key points that you can be taking away. So I'm going to be using the Market Smith charts. They're today's sponsor, discounted trial available in the comments below, and specifically I'm going to be focusing on relative strength. I know many of you are very good analyzing both the price and the volume, but relative strength I think is the most important indicator to be using when you then factor in your chart analysis for cup and handle VCPs. So let's start here. We've got Apple, okay, from 1985 to 1987. So the context here, the stock is in a strong uptrend, then it starts building out this really nice base, starts putting in these high lows and on the breakout here. And the thing that I'm going to continue banging on about in this video as we go through these 37 charts is pointing out the relative strength line. For some of the newer stocks, we're going to have the relative strength line versus the stocks owned industry group as well. The relative strength line is important. Why? Because it's the opinion of the market. So if you want to find the stocks that the market likes the most, you need to be looking for stocks that are preferably hitting 52-week highs on the relative strength line, and or the relative strength line is in a very powerful uptrend. So this is Apple here breaking out. See how the relative strength line is turning up here. This is then Apple in 1998, 2000. It's in the context of a very powerful uptrend here. It's building these bases. What do you notice about the RS line? The RS line is just powering up here. So even when the S&P 500, which is this black line, is making a series of higher lows and lower lows, of lower highs and lower lows, okay, it's powering down here. We can see that with the black line trending down. What is Apple doing? Apple's doing the opposite. It's making a series of higher highs and higher lows, building these bases, relative strength line turning up. So remember, the RS line is going to point you to what the market likes most. This is Apple in 2000, 2007. So we can see it starts building out this nice base. You start putting in these higher lows, riding these key moving averages. Look how the RS line is turning up into these breakouts. So yes, you want to be looking for the VCPs, the cup and handles, the flags, the Davis boxes, but you want that strength confirmed by the relative strength line. You want to trade the cream of the crop stocks in the market, trade those with the highest relative strength. So you can see it here, builds out this really nice cup and handle type base. Look how the RS line's powering up. You've got the volume just drying up here as well. Stock starts building out these bases here, certainly over here, nice VCP action. Look how the RS line is in the context of a strong uptrend. Let's go to AMD. So AMD, we know in the last 10 years it's been on a very big run. It also did some big runs back in the 1970s and 1980s. So you see here, nothing has changed. Okay, you're going to see stocks from the 60s, 70s, 80s. Nothing has changed. The way stocks move, the relative strength line, it is all just the same. It is supply and demand. It's relative strength. They're the three things I'm paying most close attention to. Is the chart, so being the price action of the stock, the volume of the stock, and the relative strength. They're the three things that I'm really dialed into. So you can see when it's building these bases here. Look how the RS line in the context of an uptrend builds a little low pivot here. So this is a cup and handle with a low pivot coming through. Look how the RS line's turning up. Look how the volume's drying up perfectly. Stock goes and builds a big base here, starts putting in these high lows. Look how the RS line is in a multi-month uptrend, multi-year uptrend at this point. Then in the context of a stage 2 uptrend, look how it's building out this base. Look what the RS line is going. Train your eye to spotting these RS lines. When we get to some of the newer ones, I'll explain the stock's RS line versus the industry group as well. So the stock builds out a really big base here, starts putting in these higher lows. Okay, so you're building a lot of causality in here with these high lows, high lows, high lows. Then it gets really tight over here. So remember, some of you have hopefully seen my previous videos. I'm looking for those trigger bars, looking for price action to get really, really tight, and then also looking for the RS line to be confirming that, volume drying up. But look how this RS line is turning up when the stock starts getting really tight here on the weekly chart. Then this is AMD in 2015 to 2020. So now this green line that you can see in here, this is the stocks RS line, or the stocks RS line versus its own industry group. So for AMD, that's going to be the semiconductor industry group. So you can see here, let's take this example here. Stock builds a big base, starts powering out here, it starts getting really tight on the weekly chart. Okay, a couple of trigger bar weeks in there. Look how this green line here, do you see how this is turning up? This is a stock's relative strength line versus its own industry group. Take a look at the blue line here. This is a stock versus the market versus the S&P 500. So the point then is we're looking for the strongest stocks in the market, but then we're trying to dial it in and look for, okay, what is the strongest stock in a specific industry group as well? How do we do that? Again, it's not my opinion, it's not your opinion, it's not you reading an article about the fundamentals on Twitter or something like that. It's paying attention to the relative strength line. The relative strength lines are the opinion of the market. You just want to know, what does the market think is strong? So you can see on all of these breakouts here, okay, the RS line is turning up. Seeing this base here, builds the high lows, bounces off the key moving averages, higher lows on the relative strength line coming through, and the RS line versus the market. This is Amgen back in 1984, 1981. So we have the green line here. So this is, I think this is a really clear one for the industry group. So can you see here, we start putting in these high lows, really nice VCP action. Then when it starts tightening up, what do you notice about the RS lines? Do you see how the RS line here is in the context of an uptrend? It's in the context of an uptrend. When you really start breaking out into this phase 2 uptrend, what do you notice with these RS lines? See this green line here. So the stock versus its own industry group, which is medical, biomed, biotech. See how it's in the context of an uptrend here versus the market in the context of an uptrend. So the stock is not only strong versus the S&P 500, it's strong versus its own kind of brother sister stocks in the same industry group. That is how we really dial in, try and trade what we think are the strongest stocks in the market. Amazon, we all know about Amazon, right? So starts powering out here after the IPO. Look how the RS lines, see how it's turning up here, see how it's turning up here. So again, this can be the missing link in some of your kind of analysis, if you like, for stocks. You want to trade the strongest stocks in the market, focus on the RS lines. This is Amazon again. It's kind of a repeat of the chart. I must have put that in twice. This is Amazon in 2000 and 2010 and onwards. So can you see here around 2015? See how it's building this base here, cup and handle type pattern, puts in this cup and handle. Look at some of these volume bars coming through. Big volume bars being confirmed by the or the price actions being confirmed by the volume. Call that bullish synchronicity. We get these widespread candlesticks and the volumes confirming the positive price action. Then do you see how tight it gets? It gets really tight. RS line is turning up. RS line versus the industry group turning up as well, while the index is basically just going sideways. Amazon's actually building these high lows in the context of an uptrend. Another breakout here, RS line turning up, really good to see. Baidu, so this one here is in 2005 to 2011. So again, just nothing has changed. Stock IPO starts putting in these higher lows, little kind of cup and handle in here. RS line versus the industry group turning up, enters this stage 2 uptrend. Take a look at these RS lines. They're almost vertical. It's over a 45-degree angle of attack here. See that? How it's just turning up here, turning up here. Stock is extremely strong. Builds out this really large base in here. Starts getting really tight around these key moving averages. RS lines, context of an uptrend. Stage 2 breakout. See how the market is pulling back down here, but the stock is just trending up here. Again, the stock is trying to tell you something. The market is trying to tell you something about this stock with these RS lines, and the stock just making higher lows and higher highs, while the indexes are making lower highs and lower lows. CMG, Chipotle. So again, similar as Baidu. From this IPO base, see how it starts building these high lows, gets really tight in here, the volume dries up, RS lines in the context of an uptrend. In the context of an uptrend, over here, this is during the Great Recession. So the index is making a series of lower lows. The stock then bottoms, start putting in these high lows, getting really tight. See how these RS lines are turning up in the stage 2 uptrend. RS lines versus the industry group versus the market are turning up as well. So this is what you want. Stocks near their 52-week highs or in 52-week high territory with really strong RS lines. Now I'm combining my weekly analysis and then really pinpointing it on the daily chart, and also I utilize the 1-hour chart as well. This is Cisco Systems. The stock went up, I think it was 78,000% or something like that. So again, we want to study the stocks that go up thousands of percent, tens of thousands of percent. What do they do? How do they move? What are those repeatable characteristics? This is the point of studying the market, studying how stocks move in a very deliberate manner. So you can see here, Cisco Systems in the context of an uptrend. What do you notice about the RS lines? This green line here, so Cisco Systems versus industry group, computer networking, in the context of a powerful uptrend as it's building out these bases on the key moving averages. RSA in the context of an uptrend as well versus the S&P 500. More bases here. RS lines confirming the move. Really nice cup and handle here in 1994, 1995. See how it builds out this cup and handle. RS lines, context of an uptrend. Context of an uptrend. Really nice action. Cisco again. This is a little bit later on in the move, so this is now 96 to 2000, which is the tech bubble. This is the one we're just looking at, that cup and handle. So it's in the context of a nice uptrend here. What do you see about these RS lines? They're trending up. So focus on those RS lines, and you're going to be drawn and more likely to be trading the strongest stocks in the market via the market's opinion, not my opinion, not your opinion, the market's opinion. Deckers Outdoors. See how it starts moving out here. So the stock builds a big base here. So there's a lot of causality. You'll see this with AMD. Well, you saw this with AMD. You'll see this with Nvidia. I'll highlight this when we get onto Nvidia. See how it builds a big base in here. RS line trending up. So as it starts breaking out into the stage 2 uptrend, what do you notice about the RS lines? Green line's a little bit difficult to see, but you see how it's in the context of an uptrend, as is the RS line versus the S&P 500. Then it's just getting really tight here on the weekly chart. Over here, nice big base build, big cup and handle type pattern. And then when it really starts tightening up, there's a perfect trigger bar on the weekly over here. There's a couple of them actually where it gets really tight in this cup and handle. Look at these RS lines. Fantastic. It's what you want to see. DLTR. So this one here is Dollar Tree. So you see how it builds this base here. It's kind of a big cup and handle, gets really tight here on the weekly chart. RS line in the context of an uptrend. Stock in the stage 2 uptrend. RS lines turning up, getting really tight there. It's the type of action you want to see. This is eBay. So eBay is a really good example of this. So let's just focus on this space here. So this is after the bear market of the early noughties. So see how eBay bottoms ahead of the market. So this black line here is the S&P 500. See how it's making a series of lower lows and lower highs. But what is eBay doing? Well, eBay bottoms ahead of the market, and this is the relative strength point. This is the market pointing you to the leaders. See how it bottoms ahead of the market, then it starts putting in high lows, high lows, high lows, tightening range. Do you see how this RS line, look, from when it bottoms, this RS line up until the breakout point is just turning up here. Okay, perfect. Then when the stock's in the context of an uptrend, RS line turning up. This is what you want to see. eBay, obviously a very big winner. I think O'Neill had the vast majority of his account in eBay in 2000 and into 2003, 2004, into this run up here. Clearly, it met all of the cancelling criteria. Enphase Energy, solar stock. So from its IPO, pulls back down here, a rather big sell-off, but then it bounces and then it starts putting in these high lows, high lows, high lows. Look how tight it gets in here around these key moving averages. RS lines start turning up into the breakout. Really positive action to see. Google, you know about Google. What did Google do? Okay, one of the biggest winners in the stock market in the last 20 years or so. What did it do here? Can you see this breakout? And now it's just building on the RS line. The RS line's in the context of a nice uptrend, higher highs and higher lows coming through, both versus the stocks own industry group, which is internet content, but also versus the S&P 500. See how it builds this really nice base in here. Okay, it's kind of this apex formation, starts putting in these high lows, gets really tight in here. RS lines in an uptrend, RS versus its own industry group, uptrend. Then it builds out this cup and handle with a little low pivot, RS uptrend, RS uptrend, volume dries up really nicely in there. RG, Intuitive Surgical. So what does this stock do? From its IPO, builds a really big base in here. So this is the causality point. I believe in the law of cause and effect. So bigger causes tend to lead to bigger effects, being the uptrend. So I like to see if a stock's going to move or is it now in the context of a staged uptrend. So if I'm looking at an ISRG over here, potentially maybe it's over here building a base on the daily as well. If I can look back on the chart and see that there's this very big cause that's been built, this very big base, that is something that's just a positive for me. Something I like to look for. The RS line starts turning up, both versus the industry group versus the market, into this tight pivot here. Then it starts powering out. Same story in the context of these phase 2 uptrends as well. See how the RS line is just powering up there. IT, very similar. Stock performs well from its IPO, starts powering up here, then it's building these bases. What do you notice about the RS lines? Really strong uptrend. These are the ones here to be focusing on. L, we're going way back when. This is lows back in 1962 to 1969. Nothing has changed. Stock from its IPO builds a really big base in here, starts powering out, and then what do you notice when it's in the context of this stage uptrend? Take a look at this RS line. It's basically a 45-degree angle of attack. It's great. See how it then starts tightening up on these key moving averages. RS line just in the context of an uptrend. This is what you want to be training your eye for. McDonald's back in the 1960s when it was in its more so its growth phase, 1960s, 1970s. So it builds out. Let's focus on this base here. See how it builds out this really nice base, couple of nice bullish reversal weeks coming through, and then it starts building high lows, high lows, high lows. Gets really tight here on the weekly chart. Volume dries up. Take a look at this RS line. See how this RS line is trending up into the breakout. If I was trading this in the 1970s and had my RS line, okay, you'd see those 52-week high, those blue dots coming through on the RS line over here as well. See how it starts tightening up, high lows, high lows, high lows. The index is actually pulling back here, but see how the RS line is turning up, volume's drying up. Picture perfect. These are the ones you want to train your eye to. Monster Beverage, this stock has gone on some massive runs. So again, why are we spending the time doing this? Why are you watching this video? You're trying to learn how do stocks move? What do the big winners in the market do? And what are those repeatable characteristics? So Monster Beverage here runs from a couple of dollars up here to $80. Remember the causality point that I've been making as well. Do you see this here? This is a big base. So this is that proverbial fuel within the fuel tank to help propel the stock. A lot of accumulation goes on in here. Okay, this is why you can then get some really big runs. So when this stock starts breaking out here, it gets really tight on those key moving averages. See how the volume dries up perfectly, trigger bars galore on the weekly chart, RS lines start turning up, then the stock goes into this phase two uptrend. And you see how these RS lines are just pointing up here. So again, the market will point you to what are the biggest winning stocks in the market. Builds loads of flags, builds loads of VCP, cup and handle, high tight flag along this move as well. 2006, 2012 for Monster Beverage. See how it builds again, this really large base, higher lows coming in. The S&P 500 is making lower lows, but Monster Beverage is actually making a series of higher lows, starts tightening up, RS lines in an uptrend. Really nice, really tight pivot over here. Look at those RS lines, picture perfect. Mosaic, Moss 2004 to 2008. So again, the causality point here, do you see this nice big base that gets built? This is a, what's this, maybe an 18-month, 24-month base that builds. See how it starts building? VCP action. 1 contraction, 2 contraction, 3 contraction, 4 contraction. Really, really tight in here. The volume dries up. Look at these RS lines turning up. Then in the context of this stage 2 uptrend, RS lines, powerful uptrend, around about a 45-degree angle of attack. Microsoft, we all know about Microsoft. So what did Microsoft do? It's been one of the biggest winners in the market. Is it doing anything different to all the stocks I've just shown you? No, it's in the context of a powerful uptrend. And look at these RS lines trending up 52-week highs into the breakouts here. Then versus the stocks and industry group. Let's take a look at this breakout. So stocks in the context of a phase 2 uptrend pulls back into these key moving averages. Volume dries up, but take a look at the RS line. The RS line is trending up while the stock's building a base. Same versus the industry group as well. You can then see it in here as well. High lows, high lows, high lows. Starts getting really tight. Volume dries up. Take a look at these. Take a look at these RS lines versus the computer software desktop industry group. Really, really powerful. Just repeat time and time again. So much of trading is just pattern recognition. It's first off learning kind of the knowledge base of what do big winning stocks do? How do they act in terms of price and volume? But what do they do in terms of relative strength as well? And you want to start combining these, then obviously have an understanding of optimal chart patterns. Cup and handle, flag, VCP, Davis box, and then you're just trying to repeat and position yourself to potentially take advantage of said moves. This is Netflix. They made a really big run. Remember the causality point. So Netflix, it hardly does anything. It just goes sideways from basically 2003 where it topped to 2009 here. So you have around a 5-6 year base that builds. Starts just building high lows, high lows, high lows. Then this is where it gets really tight. Look at these RS lines turning up. Again, the market is trying to tell you, or the stock is trying to tell you something. The market is trying to tell you something about the stock if you're paying attention to the RS. So take a look at the S&P 500. See how it's making a series of lower lows and lower highs coming through. What is Netflix doing? It's doing the opposite. It's making higher highs and higher lows. Bullish price action, tightens up on these key moving averages, RS lines, both in the context of an uptrend. Really nice. Even here, S&P 500 pulling back down, making lower lows. What is Netflix doing? It's bouncing, putting in higher lows. Look at these RS lines. Really good to see. Nvidia, this again goes back to that causality point of looking for big bases. And then when Nvidia starts breaking out of this big phase 1 base, look how these RS lines are just turning up perfectly. Then the stock's in the context of a phase 2 uptrend, just base after base. What do you notice about the RS lines? This is a much more recent one, but again, this could look like a chart from the 1960s for lows, for instance. Okay, just nothing has changed it. So you're looking for strong stocks, really strong RS lines, both versus the market, but also versus the stocks owned industry group, because that's then going to dial into, okay, what are the strongest stocks in the market? What is the strongest stock in that industry group, which is showing strength? PDS 2001 to 2004. See how this stock builds this really nice VCP. 1 contraction, 2 contraction, 3 contraction, 4 contraction, about 5 contractions in here. RS lines context of an uptrend. So while the index here is making a series of lower lows and lower highs, what is the stock doing? The stock has bottomed and it starts basing out, putting in these high lows. Really, really nice breakout in here. RS line, strong uptrend. A few more. This is PHM. Now this stock went on a massive run from about $4 to $40 back in the 1980s, and it made some big runs before that as well. So look at these breakouts here. We don't have the stocks industry group back here yet, but we will over here. Look how the stock just building out this really nice flag, higher lows on these key moving averages, RS line, context of a nice uptrend here, and here again. Then this base here builds a big base. So this is that causality point. Big causes tend to lead to big effects in both directions. Puts in this low, then high lows, high lows, high lows, tightens up, volume dries up. Look at these RS lines. Really, really nice uptrend. This is what you're looking for. See how the index here is making a series of lower lows and lower highs, whereas the stock is just doing the opposite after it bottoms, puts in these higher highs and higher lows. Qualcomm, again, very similar chart to a lot of the ones we've just seen. Stock puts in a big base here, starts building high lows, high lows, high lows. Look how the RS line starts turning up. Then in the context of a stage structure, and look at the outperformance of the stock versus the S&P 500. These are the ones you want to be focused on. Stock goes from $8 to around about $200, and there's some really nice breakouts along the way in there as well. Charles Schwab back in the 90s. So really similar. Stock here. High lows, high lows, high lows, tightening up. Look how tight it gets here on the weekly chart. RS line in the context of an uptrend. Over here, when it starts breaking out in this phase 2 uptrend, look at these RS lines in the context of an uptrend. Southwestern Energy, SWN. You see how the index here is making a series of lower lows and lower highs, but what is the stock doing? Well, the stock is just putting in these high lows, getting really tight in here. Look how this RS line versus the market is trending up. Then you have these base breakouts. A lot of these are kind of flag type patterns, but you see how the RS line versus the market versus the industry group, they are turning up. Really, really powerful stock. Tractor Supply 2006 to 2012. So builds a really big base in here, starts building high lows, high lows, high lows, getting tight on the key moving averages, volume dries up, RS line starts turning up, and then when the stock really gets going in this phase 2 uptrend, do you see how this green line here, a little bit difficult to see, but you see how this green line here, so the stock's relative strength versus its own industry group, which is retail, wholesale, building products. Do you see how the RS line is turning up here? So you're trying to find strongest stock in the market, strongest stock in the industry group. Really dial it in. Two more. We've got Walmart. Obviously, we all know about Walmart. Its growth phase was back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, really. So you can see here, Walmart starts building out this base. High lows, high lows, high lows. RS line, uptrend. Starts building out this base in here, gets really tight in this low pivot, cup and handle with a low pivot. RS line, uptrend. When it starts breaking out here, we've now got the industry group RS line, industry group RS line, in an uptrend. RS line versus the market in an uptrend. Can you see these repeatable characteristics for these big winning stocks? Again, you just want to understand what do big winning stocks do? What are those repeatable characteristics in terms of the basis? So the patterns that they form. What do the candlesticks look like in a base? What do they look like in a pivot point as well? What does the volume do? What is the RS line doing versus the market versus the industry group? This is Xerox from the 1960s. So again, stock builds, gets out really well here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5-6 weeks up in a row here, really good volume, and then it starts building high lows, high lows, high lows. Nice VCP action, couple of trigger bars there. RS line, context of an uptrend in here as well for this phase 2 uptrend. Context of an uptrend, bit of a kind of cup and handle here. Look at the RS line in the context of an uptrend. So that is it, guys. Hopefully that video there where I'm just banging on about relative strength is going to be one of the keys for you when you're doing your own screening and trying to identify what are going to be those strongest stocks in the market. If you want to learn more about me and my trading, and you want some of my best stock picks on a daily basis, head over to primetraderclub.com. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in a future video.